So this is a consistory case that, for those who were not there at the end of class, we kind of looked at, and everyone decided it would be, I guess everyone, enough people decided it would be their preferred case for or document for the day. So I'll start at the beginning, and we only read basically a little bit about a line in class, but I have not read this document in many, many, many years, and I forgot just how insane the next section is. So both to give you more to work from and just to get you moving further along in the document, I'm going to read the whole first part of the case, the first appearance at first week, and then we'll skip ahead to the second week and the kind of meat of it and the really crazy part to read together. So we didn't cover this in class. This looks like RX. It looks like the abbreviation for relâché that we saw before, but it's A. Messieurs. Messieurs means the council, the members of the city council. A demain. So this is Thursday, December 26th, 1560. It's the week after they've had Christmas communion. Communion is 4 times a year in Geneva at this time. So it's after the quarterly communion. Normally consistory cases go to the council on the Monday after the consistory session, but this one, they must think there's a bit of urgency because they decide to send it for the following day. And so this can't be relâché, it's probably renvoyé. Normally that's cases are renvoyés à messieurs, à demain. And then the line we did do in class, su, that S I think comes up later in a place where it's a little less obvious, so a good one to keep in mind. Le, our sort of classic seagull E, fait, de, and here is our kind of classic two-stroke E. Femme, and that's our classic looped E, and then the kind of combo sort of halfway between the looped E and the two strokes. Sur le fait des femmes qui se, E that looks almost like a modern C, disent, être, and here the ST I think is pretty obvious. And then you have a loop for the abbreviation. The beginning looks like an A lot like, say, the A in à messieurs or à demain, but it's really that two-stroke E, but joined at the front or at the top, top left, as opposed to some other ones that we might see that are joined elsewhere. He's got quite a wide variety of E's. So you've got this one that's joined at the top left. Here in prophetesses, we've got the two-stroke E that's not joined at all between top and bottom. We've got the looped E that's just one fluid motion. Another version of the looped E, the kind of what I call the seagull E, and the one that looks like a modern C, the looped one, another kind of seagull E. Here's the sort of more classic seagull E. Some of them really look like a seagull, and here's one it looks like the looped E, but it's just missing a little bit. The quill just lifts a little bit there, and then here at the end you've got the sort of two-part E. It's actually very similar to this one, except it just doesn't link at the top. Être prophétesse et avoir le don de divination with a D-E, V-I-N-A-T-I-O-N. Don, so N-T at the end, so the T is just flat. Messieurs, so again, the city council. Demande avis, or advis, A-D-V-I-S. So she was before the city council and is being sent to the consistory. Ah, and this, it's really light there, so it almost looks like an E. In fact, I read it as an E at first. But you can see it's kind of like this. It just doesn't complete the loop back around. And I think he does this a few times maybe. a semblé bon de les avertir. So we've got advi and advertir. Qu'il seroit, so S-E-R, that looks like a V, O, that looks like it could be an I, but O-Y-T. Seroit bon, so this O, you can see it's very similar, just opened up a tiny, tiny bit more. De donner, and then an O that's really open. De donner with the R at the end. This one, you got just a small little concis here at the beginning. So congé à la Marguerite. So M-A-R-G-U-E-R-I-T-E. And, you know, this is, again, one of those things where you'd have to do some research to figure out who it actually is, but it looks like Gamarel. So G-A, and then probably M-M-E-R-E-L. Marguerite Gamarel, qui est détenue, so D-E-T-E-N-U-E, that's kind of seagull E, en leur, c'est-à-dire monsieur, so en leur prison. So she's in prison. Et quand la Marie, veuve, so V-E-F-V-E, de, feu, Louis, L-O-Y-S, no U, de la Pierre. You know, just, that looks like it could be a C at the end, but of course it has to be an E, right? Because we have P-I-E-R-R-E, de la Pierre. Dis le. And this one's a little tough. You've got P and then a nice R at the end. I don't think we've seen this form of R in this document, but it should be pretty familiar by now. Very classic R. And D. And at this point, it's a little bit of a guess, but for whatever reason, Le Picard is a common nickname in Geneva. I don't know if les Picards were all leaving Picardie or exactly what, but and I know some of the people who are called, there's a guy, Jacques Simon dit Le Picard, and I know for a fact he's born in Geneva. I don't know how these people acquire this nickname, what, you know, if it has some local meaning or if their ancestors were really from Picardy. But so this is just something because of local knowledge that I can guess with reasonable assurance is Le Picard. And now that I've read the whole document, I'm quite sure of it because he's mentioned, and I think it's spelled more clearly further on. Dit Le Picard, ça. And here this looks like almost like the maybe CH, but it's that 9, and you can see a little bit of it up there, but it's missing part of the loop, so it's only half a loop. So it's that 9 that stands for con or com. Excuse the language, right? Compagne, so C-O-N, abbreviated here, P-A-I-G-N-E. Sa compagne. Et qui s'est retiré. So I mentioned that Picard, you got the classic R. There's another really great example of a classic R at the beginning. Retiré, got the R that's more like an O. And a little hard to see, but you've got 1, 2, and then the seagull, so you've got 2 E's, so it has feminine accord. So, retirer hors cette cité entendra la délivrance d'Iselle Marguerite, sa compagne. Elle ne se pourra tenir... hang on. Yeah. Elle ne se pourra tenir de retrouver en cette cité. So, she's not able to find her. Et lors, l'on s'en pourra saisir. So, l'on, L'-O-N, s'en, S'-I-N, pourra saisir. Et les mettre toutes deux ensemble. So, here you have assembler bon, and here you have ensemble. And I think you can see here you've got the entendre, ensemble. Ensemble, et les pourra. Et les pourra on. So we would write in modern French P-O-U-R-R-A-T-O-N. Et les pourra-t-on, but here there's no T. Very, very common. It's extremely rare that they add the T for to help the phonetics. But les pourra-on interroger que c'est, qu'elle pense. Puis, so after interrogating them, advisera-on. So exact same problem. So that we would say advisera-t-on with a hyphen, T hyphen. Advisera-on en leur fait. So she's not actually here. She's still in prison, but they're going to look into it, and hopefully the following day in the council, and then we're going to see the next week she's going to be before the consistory. So now we're a week later, and it's jeudi de janvier 1561, and then this is the list of all the people who are at the meeting, and I think relevant to this particular case, there's Monsieur Calvin and Monsieur de Bez. Also for Rebecca, there's also Monsieur Viret. I thought about pulling an earlier case, because our scribe in the earlier consistory cases would be our old friend Jean Poral from day one. And then you have the syndics and city councilors and a few other members of the Council of 200, including the famous Marquis Galeas Caracciolo, who comes to Geneva as a refugee. And then we get to the part where it starts to just get pretty crazy, and I'm just going to read the first 3 lines because it's already 12 minutes into this. I don't want to try your patience or YouTube's. So avis in the margin just means that they're going to render an opinion. So that would be so that when the scribe is going back through the registers to try to figure out, what the nature of the case is. He's got the other one where it says it's renvoyé à monsieur, and then this one says it's an avis. So if they want to go back and figure out what the decision is, he can find it by scanning the margin. And now we have our same woman who was mentioned before, Marguerite Gamarel, femme de, and here we get to the things where, as I say, you've got to look people up. This person is not going to be someone you can look up. He's Simon. That's fairly obvious. We got the S at the beginning, and then the O-N, and then a bunch of humps. So Simon is the only possibility. Then we have obvious B, obvious R, obvious O, obvious E, obvious T, and then in the middle we have something that could be N, V, U. So he could be Brouet, Bronet, Brovet. I don't know, my first guess would be Brouet, I guess, B-R-O-U-E-T, but that would take research to find out. And then very, very commonly people are identified by their profession. So this is M with a flourish and then a C-I-E-R. So he's a mercier. Same in French as in English. He's a mercer, a textile worker. And then we have a renvoi in the at the top. And so if we go down to the bottom, we should find it. And so we have one here. We have another mark here, so we're going to have another renvoi somewhere in the text, or cross-reference. So then this, it's actually quite hard to read, but it's very, very common. They're going to say 2 things about someone: the profession and place of origin. So that kind of helps that it's de And then we have Choumont, Choum, maybe 2 M's, maybe 1 M, probably Choum ONT, maybe 2 M's, maybe Chaumont. I have to magnify it a bit more and count them. En Bassigny, and that's something you can look up, and I'll try to do a video on that, but I think probably if you type it into Google, you'll probably get it. And then I'll read just the 3 lines that should really whet your appetite. So, confesse, which in this time is always usually synonym for avouer. Confesse que étant au prêche de Monsieur Calvin, so she's listening to Calvin preach, à Saint-Pierre, so in the main city cathedral. Elle, what's she doing? Regardant. So again, you have that R I've mentioned a couple times. E, G, A, and then the R that looks like an O. D, A, with a flourish and a T. So elle regardant. En son. Bunch of humps, but we have 2 humps. O, E, A, U. So Nouveau Testament. Su le CHAPRE chapitre. Z, no, just kidding. Chapitre 2 de l'Apocalypse. So D-E L apostrophe APOCALYPSE. If you are probably Jan already knows that Calvin never preached on the book of Revelations. So she's listening to Calvin preach, but she's reading something else in her Bible. And, she's a prophetess, or prophetess, so it makes sense to be reading in Revelations. But it's going to get pretty wild after this. So read as much as you can, and I think we'll do Monsieur Bradley quickly, because I think you'll enjoy spending almost the entire time on this, because it's going to get crazy. All right, have fun.